Hi Titans, thank you for joining us today for another one of our financial literacy series webinars, Understanding Taxes, What to Know About Filing Taxes. My name is Lupe and I am the Programming Graduate Assistant at Tuffy's Basic Needs. And I am your host and presenter for today. So without further ado, let's begin. Actually, before we begin, I do want to disclaim that I am not an expert in tax-related matters, and neither is Tuffy's Basic Needs Services. Therefore, unfortunately, we cannot assist you in filing your taxes. This workshop contains general information on taxes and filings, and we will provide links to the IRS and other resources that you can use or reach out to if you have questions about your specific case. So in this presentation, we will cover a general overview of taxes. So what are they and what do they do? What is the criteria for filing? Tax preparation and how you could prepare, for example, what forms or documents you may generally need, and then go over some tax filing options as well. So what are taxes? Well, fun history fact, the federal income tax system that we know today stems from the 16th Amendment in the US Constitution, which Congress passed in 1913 and authorized direct taxes on income. So taxes are collected by the IRS, which many of you might have heard about already. Who is taxed? When people speak of income taxes, they're usually talking about individual earners or what taxing agencies call individual income taxes. This is money that's paid by workers and other people who make and receive money. However, businesses, corporations, trusts, estates, and other types of entities also pay income tax on their profits. However, for this presentation, I will only be focusing on individual income taxes, not business. Now, when it comes to individual earners, what is taxed exactly? Well, I mentioned that we are taxed on income. So income can be earned, which includes salaries, wages, tips, commissions. This is earned usually refers to money that people make by working, or it could be unearned, which is interest made from investments, unemployment compensation, loan forgiveness or cancellation of debt or student loans, or other types. Unearned is usually money that an individual receives not necessarily by working, but by other means and are also taxable. So how are people taxed? Well, income tax brackets determine how much is taxed, as you can see in the image below. It also depends if one files single or married, and these brackets can vary year to year. So what is the purpose of taxes? What do they pay for? Well, governments cannot operate without revenue or money. So in order to get that money, they charge an income tax, which is based on how much people earn in one year. According to the Congressional Budget Office, individual income taxes are the federal government's top source of revenue. For example, in 2017, about 48% of the federal revenue came from income taxes. So that's about half. Also, the majority of tax dollars help to fund defense, Social Security, Medicare, healthcare programs, social safety net programs like food stamps or what is known as CalFresh, and disability payments, along with also paying off the interest on the national debt. All right, so it's time for some tax trivia. So what day is the federal tax deadline to file? Now, in the interest of time, we'll go ahead and skip to the answer. So taxes are due every year on April 15th. However, because of COVID-19, the deadline to file for the 2020 tax year is now May 17, 2021. So there is still time to file taxes if you haven't done so. Also, our system in the US is a voluntary one. This doesn't mean that income taxes are optional, just that we calculate the tax for ourselves rather than paying a bill that we receive from the federal and state governments. So in essence, you can think of filing taxes like creating and calculating our own bill. And also, side note, not all state governments charge charge taxes. It does vary state by state. The IRS has safeguards in place to ensure that we comply since it is a voluntary reporting system. For example, agency or the IRS receives a copy of your W-2s every year, and if you don't file a return, they will calculate the tax for you and send you a bill. So, do I need to file taxes? Well, not everyone is required to file an income tax return each year. Generally, if your total income for the year doesn't exceed the certain thresholds, like the ones below, then you don't need to file a federal tax return. The amount of income that you can earn before you are required to file depends on your type of income, your age, and your filing status. So for example, you don't need to file a tax return for 2020 if all of the following are true for you. If you're under age 65, if you're single, if you don't have any special circumstances that require you to file, for example, if you don't receive self-employment income, and if you earn less than $12,400, which is a 2020 standard deduction for a single taxpayer. Now, again, remember, this can vary year to year. I also want to talk about other considerations that may apply to college students. So can or does someone claim you as a dependent on their taxes, such as a parent? And for reference, a dependent is someone like a child or a relative that qualifies a person filing to receive an exemption. Now, individuals who are claimed as dependent on someone's tax return will follow different IRS filing requirements, regardless of whether they are children or adults. Generally, a tax return is necessary when their earned income is more than their standard deduction. For example, single dependents who are under 65 must file if any of these apply. So if unearned income was more than 1,100, unearned income, as you remember, is from interest on investments, dividends, or capital gains. If your earned income was more than 12,400, if you recall, earned income includes anything from salaries or wages or any work performed. Or if your gross income, which includes unearned and earned income, was more than the larger of 1,100 or 12,050 plus 350. Now I know these numbers can sound a little bit confusing, so luckily there is one way that you can determine if you should file without having to memorize this, and I will show you that tool in a minute. But before that, I just want to touch on one more thing. Another question that you may ask yourself is, did you receive a taxable income in 2020? So there are years when you might not be required to file a tax return, but you may want to. And if you have federal taxes withheld from your paycheck, which you can check on your W-2, the only way that you can receive a tax refund when too much was withheld is if you file a tax return. So, for example, let's say that you are a single taxpayer who earned $2,500 during the year with $300 withheld from federal tax. Well, you can file a return and you could be entitled to a refund for the entire $300 since you earned less than the standard deduction. Now, the IRS doesn't automatically issue refunds without a tax return. So if you want to claim a tax refund that's due to you, then you should file. Actually, I want to go back to this one. In essence, if you are not required to file, but you made less than 12,500 and you see that federal income tax was withheld from your paychecks, then you can file for a refund. And in order to file for a refund, you would have to file taxes. All right, so here's a tool that I talked to you about. The IRS has interactive tools that can help answer a lot of common questions, and it goes by the name of Interactive Tax Assistant. So you can click on the link here, on the link right here, and it'll send you straight to this page. And all you have to do is answer some questions, and it can determine if you're required to file a federal tax return or if you should file to receive a refund. Now, I'll be posting the link to this PowerPoint in the YouTube description, so you can go ahead and find all of the links that are in this PowerPoint. Also, the IRS has a student platform that leads you through interactive modules to further understand the hows and the whys of taxes. Now, I pulled a lot of information from that website to create this presentation. So if you want to check it out, the link is also in the title. All right, time for another tax trivia. So what does a W-2 form report? We're just going to go ahead and go straight to the answer. So now I'm going to talk about forms or documents that you will need to prepare for tax filing. So if you receive scholarship and grants, you may need to include these on your tax return. However, scholarships and grants are tax-free, meaning that you don't need to report them if you are enrolled in a program as a degree candidate. So if you're pursuing, for example, a bachelor's degree, open university students wouldn't qualify under this. So they would have to report scholarships, grants, or work study. If you used, the other qualifying under this is if you use any of your scholarship or grant money to pay for tuition and fees, books, supplies, or any other requirements for classes or school. If you meet both of these criteria, then you don't have to report scholarships and grants in your tax return. If you receive work study and you have a job for your work study, you receive income from it, then you will need to include those earnings in your tax return. All right. There is an interactive assistant that can help you find or determine if you should include scholarships, fellowships, or grants on your tax return. That link is also in the title, and the website looks like this. All right, so there are other common forms students may be asked to submit, and it will vary case by case. This is not an exhaustive list at all, but these are the most common forms. The one that you will be required to have is your W-2. So a W-2 reports an employee's annual wages and the amount of taxes withheld from their paychecks. Now, your employers are required to send a W-2 to you and to the IRS by the end of January every year. And as I mentioned, this is required to file a tax return. So if you haven't received one by the end of February, check in with your employers. If they refuse to provide you your W-2, you can call the IRS. This is an example of what a W-2 looks like. So here are some common areas. This would be your employer's name. Here would be your name. Number one dictates the wages, tips, and other forms of compensation. And over on the number two, this is a federal income tax withheld. So referring back to if you want to file for a tax refund, this is where you would see how much federal income tax was withheld from your paycheck, and possibly if you made under 12,500, and you see some income was withheld here, then you would want to file for a refund. Now, another form is a 1098-T, which is a tuition statement. As a student, you can get certain educational credits. You can think of education credits like a discount on your bill being the tax return that you're completing. So with this form, your university reports how much qualified tuition and expenses you paid to them during the tax year. If you received a refund or a reimbursement from the school, this qualifies as well. Now, in order to earn that education credit on your tax return, the IRS needs this document as proof. And the universities have a deadline to provide a copy by the end of January. If you need to access your 1098-T, you can reach out to the Student Business Services, which I linked in the previous page. And this is an example of what a 1098-T tuition statement would look like. Also, if you paid interest on a qualified student loan last year, you may be able to deduct some or even all of that interest on your federal income tax return. Again, think of it like a discount on your bill. So your student loan servicer or whoever you make payments to will send you a copy of your 1098-E student loan interest statement via email or postal mail. If the interest that you paid in 2020 or in the previous year met or exceeded $600. So if you paid less than $600 on student loan interest last year, then you probably would not be receiving this document. But if you didn't receive anything in the mail, you can also check out the website, your servicer website, and have access to the document there. This is what the 1098-E student loan interest statement looks like. Here on the orange box, it would include the amount of student loan interest you have paid to your lenders for this year. Now, next form is the 1040, which is one of the official documents that you will most commonly use to file your taxes. Now, this form is divided into sections where you can report your income and deductions to determine the amount of tax that you owe or the refund you can expect to receive. Now, depending on the type of income that you report, it may be necessary to attach other forms or schedules to it. This is Schedule 1, for example. Here, you would add any unemployment compensation you receive, prize or award money. If you have any deductions to claim, for example, as like a student loan interest deduction that I was just mentioning, educator expenses that I mentioned as well, it would go on this form. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, there are some things I want to bring to your attention. So you may be asked to list the amount of any of the first or second stimulus checks that you received, if any. This is because some folks may be eligible to receive a credit on their taxes. So they ask you in order to determine if you are eligible. But the stimulus checks that you received are not being counted as income, and so taxpayers do not have to owe on it. Also, unemployment compensation is taxable and needs to be reported. So if you received unemployment, you should have received a form, the 1099-G. So make sure that you have that handy if you are filing taxes and you received unemployment compensation. Other additional items to bring with you or to have handy when you're filing taxes include your social security numbers or your individual taxpayer identification number, which you can use if you don't want to use your social security number or if you don't have a social security number. You will also probably need your bank account routing and account numbers for direct deposit. If you have children, having the total paid for daycare expenses and providing other information in terms of childcare. And also you might need some forms that state that you have health insurance. Form 1095A is one that you can find for the Marketplace Exchange, or 1095B or C for health insurance through another source. Now I included some links here to several checklists that I found on how to prepare what documents you might want to prepare as you file taxes. So you feel free to check those out. All right, another tax trivia. So true or false, you can file your federal taxes for free online. So it's actually true. You can file your taxes for free using the IRS free file or even doing it yourself. You can pay for self-service to help you with your taxes, for example, TurboTax, or you can pay for full service to file your taxes like H&R Block. Of course, I do suggest weighing the pros and cons of each of these options. For example, if you do it yourself, it may be completely free, but there may be mistakes or on your forms that a professional could help look over. However, if you do it on your own, you probably wouldn't have that assistance. And it also can be quite overwhelming if it is your first time. If you do a self-service like TurboTax, it might cost it might cost a bit, maybe not as expensive as a full service, but perhaps you might miss on any extra credits or deductions a professional could help you find. If you do a full service, it can be pricey, but you get the help of an expert and they can give you advice for preparing for the next year. So you can get the maximum credits or deductions on your return. Now, I would suggest doing more research on these three options and then deciding on the one that is most suitable for you. However, I do want to bring some assistance to your attention because they are free or are low income. So if your adjusted income was 72,000 or less, you can file with an IRS partner completely for free. I have linked the link to this website up here on the title page, and this is an example of what you will see. So they have a database in here of tax preparers and filers that can help you complete your tax return all for free, and it's safe and confidential. And did I mention it was free? Um, so this is a great resource to use if you qualify. Also, if you live in Orange County, the OC Free Tax Prep campaign is part of Orange County's United Way. And if you are a resident of Orange County, as I mentioned, and earned less than $60,000 in 2020, then you are eligible to receive their help. They offer drop-off services or also virtual tax assistance. And I linked all the links here to their website where you can find more information. This is a great resource for OC residents. All right, so that is all for this presentation. Thank you for joining us today. Feel free to email me or Tuffy's Basic Needs if you have any additional questions on any of the materials that we discussed through in the presentation, or if you have any questions about our services. Now, you can find this presentation down in the description below where you will have access to all of the links that have been included. So thank you for joining us. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.